The stone beneath your feet is cold. You're walking through the center of the forum, and all of Rome is watching you. You're dressed in white, like a bride, but you're not getting married. You're being buried. Hands hold you, but gently, as if touching you might defile them. For 13 years, no one has touched you. Now, everyone is touching you, but you're still alone. The Pontifex Maximus walks ahead, his lips moving in prayer. But you don't hear the prayers. You only hear your own heartbeat. The crowd is silent. This isn't a normal execution. You're not just a criminal. You're a sacred priestess, or you were, a Vestal Virgin, guardian of Rome's eternal flame. And now Rome is extinguishing you, alive. You see the stairs, stone steps descending down into the earth. You know what's below because they told you, as a warning, a small room, a bed, some food, some water, and a lid that will close over you and never open again. Before diving into these forgotten stories of survival and suffering, if you enjoy learning about the hidden truths of history, consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more content like this. And please comment below to let me know where you're listening from. I find it incredible that we're exploring these ancient stories together from different parts of the world, connected across time and space by our shared curiosity about the past. In the heart of the Roman Empire, in the Forum Romanum, there stood a temple unlike any other. It had no grand columns, no giant statues, just a small circular building, the Temple of Vesta, and inside, a fire that never went out. This wasn't an ordinary fire. It was Rome's soul. According to legend, Aeneas, fleeing from Troy, brought this flame to Italy. It had been burning for over 1,000 years, and Romans believed that the day this fire died, Rome would fall. So tending the fire was the most sacred duty, and those who performed it, the Vestal Virgins, were Rome's most powerful women. There were only 6 Vestal Virgins at any given time. They were chosen at age 6, usually from noble families. They served for 30 years. The first 10 as students, the second 10 as priestesses, the third 10 as teachers. Then, at 56, they were free. They could marry, live normal lives. But during those 30 years, the rules were absolute. They would guard the flame. They would perform daily rituals, and most importantly, they would never, ever engage in sexual relations with any man. Chastity wasn't just a choice. It was law. It was divine command. And the penalty was death, but not just death. Vestal Virgins were considered sacred, so spilling their blood was forbidden. So Rome found another method, live burial. The guilty priestess would be taken to a small chamber prepared underground. Inside would be a bed, a lamp, some bread, some water, some milk. Not enough to live on, but enough to ease Rome's conscience. Technically, they weren't starving her. They were giving her food. If the gods found her innocent, they could miraculously save her. Of course, no miracle ever came. It never did. When the lid closed, when the earth covered it, the priestess was completely alone, in darkness, in silence, without air. And slowly, very slowly, she died. Licinia was chosen at age 6. It was 103 AD during Emperor Trajan's reign. Her family wasn't wealthy, but they were respectable. Her father was a minor senator, noble but powerless. Becoming a Vestal Virgin could bring prestige to the family. The selection ceremony took place on the Capitoline Hill. 20 young girls lined up, all between 6 and 10 years old, all from noble families, all physically perfect. The Pontifex Maximus, Rome's highest religious leader, examined each one. He checked their hair, their faces, their posture, their health. Licinia had dark brown hair, green eyes. She was short and thin, but her posture was straight. When the Pontifex stood before her, he placed his hand on her head and said, "Amata, I take you as a Vestal Virgin." Amata, beloved. That was her new name. Licinia was left behind, along with her childhood. Her family cried, but with pride. They were losing their daughter, but offering her to the gods. This was an honor. This was a privilege. This was, they thought, a blessing. Licinia didn't understand. She was 6 years old. All she knew was that her mother's embrace was the last. She would never see her family again. Now, She was Vesta's daughter. The first 10 years were training. The older priestesses taught her how to feed the fire, how to perform rituals, how to recite prayers. They taught her reading, writing, Latin and Greek. They taught her Roman history, mythology, law. But most importantly, they taught her the rules. Never let the fire die. If the fire dies, you'll be whipped. Never defile the temple. If you break the rules, you'll be beaten. Never, ever be alone with a man. If a man touches you, you die. By the time Licinia turned 16, she was no longer a child. She was a young woman, beautiful, intelligent, disciplined. 10 years of training had made her a perfect priestess. Now she tended the fire on her own. She performed rituals on her own, and Rome seemed to love her. Vestal Virgins had special privileges. The best seats at gladiator fights were theirs, honored places in the theater. When they walked the streets, everyone gave way. Even consuls showed them respect. But no one touched. Never. For 13 years, Licinia was never touched, never hugged, never kissed, never just felt human warmth. Think about that. 13 years, no physical contact, only herself and the gods. Loneliness wasn't something, it was a way of life. Marcus Valerius Priscus was a senator, young, handsome, intelligent. His family was old and respectable. He was rising in politics quickly. One day he could be consul, maybe even emperor. Licinia first saw him during a ceremony in the Forum. Marcus was giving a speech about patriotism, about duty, about Rome's greatness. His voice was strong but gentle. His eyes were intelligent but warm. And for a moment, just a moment, his eyes found Licinia's. And he smiled. That was all. A smile, a glance, a second. But for Licinia, after 13 years of loneliness, a world changed. She didn't understand how she felt. She didn't know why her heart raced. She couldn't explain why she couldn't get those eyes out of her mind, because no one had told her. No one had explained what love was. No one had described how her body might react. Vestal Virgins knew everything about chastity, but nothing about love. For weeks, Licinia watched Marcus from afar, speaking in the Senate, walking in the Forum, laughing with friends, and each time, something inside her hurt, something she couldn't even name. Then, one day, during a festival, Marcus approached. The distance was respectful. No rules were broken. But he spoke. "Priestess Amata," he said, "Vesta's flame shines bright tonight. The gods must be pleased." A simple compliment, a courtesy. But for Licinia, after 13 years of silence, it was a song. "Thank you, Senator," she said, keeping her voice steady. "Rome owes you so much," Marcus continued. "Without priestesses like you, I don't know what we would be." That was all. A few sentences, a few words. But in Licinia's world, they were everything. That night, sitting by the fire, Licinia did something she hadn't done in 13 years. She wrote a letter. It was a short letter, just a few lines. She was thanking him for his kindness, for his attention. Nothing she said was inappropriate. Nothing was words of love. But it was in her handwriting, and it was written to a man. And for a Vestal Virgin, that was enough. She gave the letter to a servant, a woman she trusted. The woman would take it to Marcus, and Marcus might respond. And maybe, just maybe, Licinia wouldn't feel so alone. But the servant didn't take the letter to Marcus. She didn't because another priestess, old, jealous, rigid, had seen it. She took the letter and went directly to the Pontifex Maximus. Licinia was arrested at midnight. Guards came to the temple and took her from her quarters. No explanation was given, no questions were asked, just chains and silence. They brought her before the Pontifex Maximus. The old man held the letter, Licinia's letter, in her handwriting. "Is this yours?" he asked. Licinia couldn't lie. A priestess couldn't lie. "Yes," she said. "You wrote to a man." "Yes." "A Vestal Virgin cannot write to any man. You know this." "I know." "Then you've betrayed your vow of chastity." "No," Licinia's voice broke. "There was nothing inappropriate in the letter. I was just thanking him. You wrote to a man." The Pontifex's voice was freezing. "You thought of a man. You desired a man. That's enough. But I didn't do anything. Enough." The trial lasted one day. The Senate convened. Evidence was presented, the letter, the servant's testimony, the other priestess's accusations. Licinia defended herself, cried, begged. No one listened. Even Marcus was called. He was asked if he'd seen the letter. He said he hadn't. It was true. He was asked what he felt about Licinia. Nothing, he said, looking at the ground. A priestess. Sacred. Untouchable. He was thinking of his family, thinking of his career, saving himself, not saving Licinia. The verdict came quickly. Guilty. Betrayal of the vow of chastity, punishment, death. But how was chastity tested? Rome had a strange tradition. If a Vestal Virgin was accused, a physical examination would be performed. Doctors would check her virginity. If it was intact, she might be innocent. Licinia's virginity was intact. She was 19 and had never been touched. But it didn't matter. Her heart is defiled, said the Pontifex. Even if her body is pure, her soul is not, and the soul matters more. So the decision was final. Licinia would be buried, alive. Licinia's last night was in a cell, dark, cold, damp, waiting for morning and for death. She couldn't sleep. How could she? Tomorrow she would be underground, slowly running out of air, desperately clawing, finally giving up. How long would it take? Hours? Days? No one knew because no one came back. Near dawn, a priestess came, an old woman who had trained Licinia years ago. Her eyes were wet. "I'm sorry, child," she whispered. Licinia said nothing. What could she say? "If it's any consolation," the old woman continued, "death can be quick. If there's no air, you'll pass out within minutes. You won't feel the pain." She was lying. They both knew it. But it was kind. When the sun rose, the guards came. They dressed Licinia in a white garment, pure, virgin, ironic. They combed her hair. They washed her face. Then they brought her up, into the light, before the people. The forum was full. Thousands of Roman citizens had come to watch the execution of a Vestal Virgin. Some were curious, some were disgusted, but all were watching. Licinia walked. Her feet were heavy, her legs trembling, but her posture was straight. She would die as a priestess. She could protect at least that. The Pontifex Maximus walked ahead, reciting the liturgy. The words were in Latin, ancient, formal, incomprehensible. But the essence was this: Licinia had sinned. Licinia had betrayed Vesta. Licinia must die so Rome could live. The crowd was mixed. Some were shouting, "Traitor! Whore! Die!" But some were silent. Some had tears on their faces. One woman, a young mother, was pressing her daughter to her chest. "Don't look," she whispered. "Don't look." But the child was looking. Everyone was looking. And Licinia in the crowd saw one face, Marcus Valerius Priscus, in the back rows with the other senators. His face was expressionless. His eyes were empty. Licinia didn't look at him. She refused to look. If she looked, she might break. And she needed to walk properly. Until the end. They arrived at the Campus Sceleratus, the field of wickedness, a small area outside Rome, set aside specifically for this purpose. There was an opening in the ground, a stairway descending. The Pontifex stopped. The crowd fell silent. "Amata," he said, using her old name, "Vestal Virgin, you have broken your vow of chastity. You have defiled the goddess. You have endangered Rome. You are delivered to the justice of the gods." Licinia said nothing, but inside, silently, she prayed. "Vesta, if you hear me, if you're really there, if you're just, please be quick." The stairs are narrow and steep. The stone steps are slippery, damp. Licinia descends slowly, one guard ahead, one behind. But no chains, because where could she run? At the bottom, a small room, maybe 3 meters square. Stone walls, earthen floor. In the center, a bed, simple, hard. Beside it, a small table. On top, a lamp, a pitcher of water, a loaf of bread, a bowl of milk. That's all. Licinia enters the room. She looks around, at the walls, the ceiling, the floor. No exit, no window. Only the stairs she came down, and they'll close them. The guards leave. They climb the stairs, without saying anything. Because what could they say? Licinia is alone. Above, sounds. The sound of boards being dragged, Heavy, thick boards. They're closing the entrance. Then other sounds. Shovels, earth. They're burying the room in soil. Licinia sits on the bed. Her hands are shaking. She tries to breathe, deep breaths, calm breaths, but her lungs feel constricted. Not yet. There's still air. There's still time. The lamp flickers. The flame is weak, yellow. How long will it last? Maybe an hour, maybe 2. Then darkness. Licinia takes the bread. She doesn't bite. Her stomach is nauseous. She can't even think about eating. She takes the water. She sips. Her throat is dry. But she needs to drink. Because the longer she lives... No, that's the wrong thought. She doesn't want to live long. She wants it to end quickly. But her body isn't listening. Her body wants to live. She drinks. Hours pass. Maybe. Time is strange here. The lamp burns, but for how long? She doesn't know. The air is changing. It feels heavier. Breathing is hard. Her head feels confused. She lies down. She looks at the ceiling. She sees nothing. Just stone. She thinks of her mother. Years ago, when they parted, her mother's face. She was crying, but smiling. "I'm proud," she had said. What is she thinking now? Does she know her daughter is buried alive? Is she sad? Or is she still proud? She thinks of Marcus, that smile, that glance. This is why she's here. For a smile, for a feeling. Was it worth it? She doesn't know, but she's not sorry. Because that moment, that single moment, was more real than 13 years of loneliness. The lamp goes out, the light leaves, darkness comes. Licinia closes her eyes and waits. 1,865 years later, a construction crew is digging in Rome. They're building a new structure near the Forum. As they dig, they find something, a room, underground, sealed. They enter, and they see a skeleton on a bed of a young woman. Beside it, a lamp, a pitcher, a bowl, all broken, old, dusty. But the most disturbing thing, on the walls, scratch marks, carved deep into the stone. Because she had clawed, she had tried to live, she had tried to dig, she had tried to get out, but she couldn't. Archaeologists date the bones, 2nd century AD, maybe a bit earlier, maybe a bit later. They examine the room. They find a statue, small, bronze, the goddess Vesta. This was a Vestal Virgin, and she had been buried alive. They don't know who she was, the records are lost, but they know she died, slowly, horribly. The skeleton is now in a museum. The label says, Unknown Vestal Virgin, approximately 100 to 200 AD. Unknown, but once she had a name, a life, a story. Maybe it was Licinia, maybe it was someone else. History is silent, but the scratch marks, they speak. They say, someone died here, someone struggled, someone wanted to live, and no one helped. The Vestal Virgins lasted for over 1,000 years. In 391 AD, the Christian Emperor Theodosius banned the tradition. The temple closed, the fire went out, and Rome didn't fall. It fell 15 years later, but not because of the fire, because of barbarians. So all that chastity, all that sacrifice, all that death, was it for nothing? History says yes, but Rome thought differently. Rome believed that female bodies were dangerous, female sexuality was dangerous, female freedom was dangerous. So they had to control women, with rules, with laws, with rituals, and if a woman defied the rules, they had to destroy her. The Vestal Virgins were the perfect symbol, pure, virgin, untouchable, but also imprisoned, restricted, owned, 30 years of service, no freedom, no love, no choice. And if you couldn't endure it, if you were human, you died. This wasn't just Rome. Throughout history, cultures feared female sexuality and punished women. In the Middle Ages, witch hunts, thousands of women burned just for being independent, for thinking differently. In the 19th century, asylums, women imprisoned just for hysteria, for expressing their emotions. In the 20th century, honor killings, women murdered just for shaming the family. And today still, in places around the world, women are controlled. Their bodies, their sexuality, their lives are controlled. Their marriages, their clothing, their education, everything. Licinia's story is 2,000 years old, but its echoes are still heard today. Every year, women are killed in the name of honor, because they loved the wrong person, because they dressed the wrong way, because they said no. Every year, young girls are forced into marriages, children 10 years old, 12 years old, given to strangers, because tradition says so. Every year, women are punished just for being women. The methods changed. We don't bury people alive anymore, but the idea is the same. Female bodies must be controlled. Female sexuality is dangerous. Female freedom is frightening. And like Licinia, thousands, millions like Licinia, women pay. With their lives, with their freedom, with their happiness. The archaeologists who discovered that room in 1968 found something else. On the wall, beside the scratch marks, carved words. Hard to read, centuries had worn them down, but they deciphered them. Latin, 3 words, non sum digna, I am not worthy. As she was dying in the darkness, alone, Licinia, or whoever that woman was, still believed. Still thought that maybe Rome was right. Maybe she was a sinner. Maybe she didn't deserve to live. That's the most tragic part. They didn't just kill her. They convinced her that she deserved to die. That's how systemic oppression works. It doesn't just destroy your body, it destroys your soul. It destroys your sense of self-worth. Today, in the museum, beside that skeleton, there's a small plaque. For visitors, it says, "The Vestal Virgins were Rome's most honored women. They served the gods for 30 years. This sacrifice is worthy of admiration." But what the plaque doesn't say, how many were buried alive? How many lost their childhoods? How many wanted to fall in love but couldn't? How many in their last breath still believed they were guilty? History is written by the victors, and the victors don't write about women like Licinia. But we can write. We can remember. We can bear witness. Licinia died, but her story lives. And every time it's remembered, a piece of the system crumbles. Every time it's told, the silence breaks. Every time it's heard, a forgotten voice returns. Your name was Licinia. You were 19 years old. You wrote a letter, and Rome killed you. But 2,000 years later, we're still here, telling your story. And that's not enough for justice, but maybe it's a beginning to remember, to witness, and to ensure that never again, another Licinia dies. In the Roman Forum today, tourists walk. They take photos, they laugh, they live their lives, and beneath their feet, meters below, there's a small room, empty now. But once, someone was there. Someone was crying. Someone was clawing. Someone was dying, and no one heard. But now we hear. Now we know. Now we remember. Licinia, 19 years old, buried alive, forgotten, but not anymore. Not anymore.